Here are the materials that you need for the Snap Flex pouch. You need 2 pieces of fabric. One is going to be for the outside and one will be for the lining. The fabric is this one here. The front piece is 7 inches by 10 inches. And then the lining piece here is 7 inches by 14.5 inches. You'll also need some tabs to put on the front and the back of the pouch, and I decided to make my own. And these are 1.25 inches by 3.5. And then I'll show you later how I did this. I just folded them twice inside of each other and then just stitched along the edge. You'll need a ruler, some clips, pins, some snips or scissors, and then you'll also need some measuring tapes. And this one here is 3/4 of an inch wide, and it works with any size. You can use 1 inch or smaller. I'll just explain later what you have to do. And the length of this is 5.5 inches, and you'll need 2 pieces. And you might also need some duct tape just to make sure that these edges aren't too sharp. Once you cut the measuring tapes, the edges are quite sharp, and you don't want that to rip through your fabric or cut yourself. So I would suggest that you just take some either duct tape or electrical tape and then just put it on the ends and just kind of wrap it around. And then just trim it off here. And that will kind of just soften the edge a little bit, and you don't have to worry about cutting yourself. You can also round off the sharp corners as well, and that way that will make it less sharp. How I created this was I just folded this in half, and then each side I folded in half again to the center. And then you just stitch along the edge there. Here's the 2 pieces of fabric. This piece here is going to be the front of the pouch, and the second fabric is actually going to be the lining. I know that this is a solid, but if you have something that is printed, when you're laying this down, you want the print to be facing the bottom here, and then this is the back of the fabric. And you place the good fabric here, and you want to kind of center it. And these end pieces here is actually going to get rolled up like this, and these are going to be the little channels that the measuring tape feeds through. I mentioned earlier that you can use, different size measuring tape. The one that I have is 3/4 of an inch. Ideally, you want the channel to be about a little bit under 1 inch for this size. And if you're using a larger measuring tape, then you're going to have to make this channel a little bit bigger. The other thing that I wanted to kind of mention as well is that this fabric, I think that it's about a medium weight, and it's okay. It's kind of on the cusp of being maybe a little too lightweight for what I want to use it for, but for demo purposes, I think it's fine. If you are using a thinner weight fabric for the front and for the lining piece, I would suggest that you do use interfacing, and then that will give it a little bit more body. You can also use a piece of batting in between the two, and if you wanted to do some stitching on top, that would be quite nice. And then the batting would also give it a little bit more body. So what you want to do on both ends, so once you have this piece of fabric centered onto this piece here, you want to roll this over about 1/4 of an inch, and then you want to put this on top of that fabric, and you want to take your ruler and you want to measure about 1 inch. Okay? And then what you could do is you could take these clips and you can hold the fabric there, Okay, and then the little tabs that you made earlier, you're going to fold them in half like this, and then you're going to place it underneath the fold, like so, about the center, and maybe have it go in about 1/4 of an inch. That way it will be sewn in really well. And then you could pin this in place, and then you're going to repeat what you just did here on the other side. And what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to give this a press, and then I'm going to stitch right along this edge right here, and then I'll come back and show you what the next step is. Here's how it looks all sewn. You can see I stitched it along there, attaching the tabs on both sides. And this is what the back looks like. So if you have a printed fabric, the print will show up on this side here, and that becomes the lining. The next step is to insert the measuring tape inside this little channel. When you are inserting the measuring tape, you can see that there's like a slight curve, and you want the curved parts, the bulgy part, to be facing out, and then the edges, that way the edges here meet each other. That's what it looks like there. When you're inserting it, you want to make sure the numbers are facing down. And you just slide it through like so, and make sure that it's in the center, so that when you're sewing, you don't go over it with your needle. And you're going to flip that over and do the same thing on the other side. This. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to sew this with a French seam. And how you do a French seam is you actually start by folding it so that the outside is facing out, and I'm going to stitch along here about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So once I do that, I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. Here's the pouch sewn on the sides here, on the good sides of the pouch, and we're going to give it French seams. And what I normally do with French seams is I usually trim a bit of the selvage off, just so that it's a little bit smaller, to ensure that when I turn this inside out and then do another stitch, that I don't see any of the selvage coming through. And I usually kind of trim it quite small. I'm going to do that with a rotary cutter and a ruler. So I'm putting it just about 1/8 of an inch. If you don't feel comfortable about that, you can leave it at the 1/4 of an inch, but you're going to have to make the stitch, the French seam stitch, a little bit bigger. I find using a rotary cutter just gives you a nice sort of clean edge. I'll do that on the other side, and then I'm going to turn it good sides out. Now that I've trimmed both sides, I'm going to now carefully turn it inside out. Make sure that you get the little corners of the pouch out. You might want to use like a pair of scissors or something just to kind of push that out. And what you're going to do now is you're going to sew it about 1/4 of an inch along the edge here. Make sure all your corners are nice and pushed out. And you're going to sew along here, and what you want to be really careful with is not to sew through the measuring tape. So just kind of push it over, and then you'll have some space. And then once you sew that along here, you're pretty much done, and then you're going to turn it back good sides out. Here is the finished sewn pouch. I did the French seam here. Now I'm going to turn it good sides out. Here's the finished snap flex pouch. I really like how this turned out, and it's a really nice simple project. It doesn't take very long to do, and you could change the dimensions and make it wider, you know, if you want to make like a toiletry bag, or to, you know, to hold your projects, just something that's a little bit bigger. You can also add gussets. It gives it a nice bottom, and this size here is good for just all the small things that you have in your bag that you want to keep organized. And to open it, you just pull on the two tabs like that, and it just snaps back into place. I really hope you enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for watching the video. Bye for now.